Fox News interview that he had is that, oh, we're going to let journalists into the Strip, right? They're going to inevitably let journalists into the Strip. It's going to be favorable coverage, obviously. But even in the process, if they accidentally reveal that like the entirety of the Gaza Strip has been destroyed, what is Netanyahu's... As you guys may be aware of, I've been covering this on my own personal social media profiles, but Israel, of course, is still on an unlimited rampage, unlimited genocide. And as a part of its unlimited genocide, Israel assassinated numerous Al Jazeera journalists, very famous ones, as a matter of fact, yesterday. And then basically said that they were the journalists they were Hamas. Okay. Hey, Haas, went into the archive last night and watched your broadcast from October 8th. It was heartbreaking watching that, knowing what has been happening since. Yes, the journalist I'm talking about, of course, is Anas al-Sharif, a very famous Al Jazeera journalist from Al Jazeera Arabic. He was assassinated last night. And he was targeted and killed for doing journalism. We're obviously going to be talking about this. It is insane. Of course, Israel has not stopped. They're still bombing. Israel bombed the home of the Dalul family in Gaza, killing 10 people according to the reports, and wounding others. Among the residents is prominent journalist Motasem Dalul. Reports say that when neighbors rushed in to pull the victims from the rubble, Israel struck again, a double-tap strike, hitting the rescuers. This comes less than 24 hours after an Israeli attack killed 6 journalists in Gaza City, including Anas al-Sharif. They are actively trying to kill the remaining journalists in Gaza. They are openly and deliberately targeting journalists and then claiming, well, this journalist was Hamas. Okay. And the guilt by association, Mohammed El-Kurd also talked about this as well. I tweeted about this as well. Here, I'll show you because I retweeted that scumbag Eyal Yacobi they took photos with Hamas officials, including Yahya Sinwar. So obviously they're Hamas. They did this in the past as well. There is no justification for killing a non-combatant, especially a journalist, regardless of who they have taken photos with, for the record. Just so you understand, especially because, as I've said over and over again, if the world operated by Israel's standards for combat, then you could literally nuke Tel Aviv and claim that it's totally justifiable. Of course, it is not a justifiable act, but just understand that the only reason why they can get away with saying this is because of unlimited, unadulterated racism. Eyal Yacobi says, innocent journalist, okay? I said, Zionists justify the murder of journalists by pointing to photos they've taken with political officials of the governing party to imply they're valid military targets in a country, Israel, with mandatory service where people take photos with genocidal with regular frequency. Yeah. Of course, there's obviously Trey Yingst as well, who has also taken photos with Hamas militants, like literally. This kind of argument is ridiculous in a country, especially where there is literally a mandatory draft, a mandatory military service, as in every single person has been a part of, pretty much every single person has been a part of the Israeli occupying forces currently committing a genocide. Okay? If the rules of war were to be implemented in the way that Israel is conducting itself, then it would be justified to nuke Tel Aviv, considering that every single person in Tel Aviv, every single adult in Tel Aviv has either served in the Israeli occupying force that's currently committing a genocide or have served in the Israeli occupying force in the past. Okay? Not only that, but also every single person responsible for the internal governance and civil society organizations within the Israeli structure, within the Israeli state, would also be active military targets. This is by Israel's own estimation of what is considered a valid military target. Okay? It's ridiculous. Entire families, they take down entire city blocks because they say, well, this person was like in charge of, I don't know, keeping the streets clean in the Hamas Politburo. Okay? It is insane. It is completely insane. But of course, they do not do this. This is not a standard that is applied to Israel. It's not a standard applied to anyone but Palestinians, because people do not consider Palestinians to be human beings. That's it. Okay? The instinct of many defenders of the Palestinians is to dispel the connection between the slain Palestinian media workers and their supposed political leanings, as if anywhere in the world these exist in isolation. While it is demanded of us to distance ourselves from the guerrilla fighters struggling against colonialism and occupation, Zionist soldiers, the colonizers and occupiers can work without much irony or scrutiny in newsrooms and in media watchdog organizations. And it's crazy because one of the guys that does this is the IDF veteran, the Israeli occupying force veteran, who is the embed reporter for the Israeli occupying force for Times of Israel. I forget his name now. His name escapes me. But he routinely will post about, Emmanuel Fabian. Thank you, chatter. Emmanuel Fabian is an Israeli occupying force veteran. He also is the Times of Israel Israeli occupying force correspondingly is embedded with IDF troops in Gaza. Okay? And Emmanuel Fabian will, without even a shred of irony, routinely post Israel's defenses of murdering technically his colleagues on the other side that are being genocided. Okay? Like Emmanuel Fabian, as a direct consequence of like being embedded with the IOF, is way more of a valid military target than like any of these guys are. And he doesn't even recognize that irony. He does not even recognize that irony. He's like an active combatant. He has been an active combatant, and he's currently a part of the military wing doing propaganda for the army that is currently doing a genocide. And yet he routinely posts Palestinian journalists getting and saying, well, these are valid military targets. Take, for example, Axios' political reporting covering Israeli affairs. Barak Ravid, who was, until March 2023, a reservist in the Israeli occupation forces, while working for an international media outlet, or the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg, who dropped out of his American university to volunteer in the Israeli occupying force during the first Intifada. Then, during the course of his job, a so-called prison counselor at the notorious Ketziot camp lied to cover up for a friend whom he witnessed beating a prisoner. Correspondents entangled with the Israeli army are not challenged on the basis of proximity to the conflict, let alone condemned to die because of their participation in or fondness of the Israeli military apparatus. They do not need to be humanized. This is an inconsistent double standard that is never shown on the Israeli side. Israelis do not have to advocate for their own humanity. It is a given. Palestinians, on the other hand, have to consistently advocate for their humanity, even after they are murdered by the Israeli state that is openly doing a genocide. It's crazy. It's insane. And Israel hasn't stopped. And we're going to continue talking about it. And I'll read you his final message as well.
For the first time, Israel is taking responsibility for a deadly attack on journalists in Gaza, but claiming that one of the Al Jazeera Arabic journalists worked for Hamas.
Like, the Israeli state claims should be a non-starter. I don't give a what the Israeli state claims. They are lying. They're lying. They lie all the time. They have never been truthful. Why do you still, after 22 months of genocide, when the Israeli state is openly saying they are going to permanently occupy the Gaza Strip militarily, why are you still going, well, the genocider army has claimed that the another victim of their is actually not a journalist, but instead a Hamas militant. Okay, if the Israeli state says it, then it's, then I guess it's fine. I guess then it's a legal. It's so insane. I don't give up what the Israeli state says, okay? The only time I care about what the Israeli state is saying is to know what the lie is. The only way to understand what the truth is to recognize that the opposite of what the Israeli state is claiming is probably the truth. There's absolutely no reason why the New York Times shouldn't be fact-checking every single claim made by Israeli authorities like it does with Trump here. President Trump said he was taking control of the D.C. police due to out-of-control crime, even though violent crime on the city has fallen. Mainstream journalists and editors insist on platforming Israeli claims for objectivity's sake, but if they truly wanted to be objective reporters, they'd preface every Israel statement by noting Israel's record of disinformation and the absence of independently verifiable evidence, especially when Israel is not only directly at war against all journalists, okay, journalists who are literally correspondents for these international media organizations, for Western press in general. Israel keep the Western press's own correspondents in the Strip, okay? But also, Israel is directly at war with the truth. Israel is not even allowing Western press and Western media to enter the Gaza Strip. That in and of itself is enough for any Western media company worth its salt to immediately apply scrutiny. Why won't they let us in? Why won't they want us to cover the truth? Why won't they let us report truthfully about what's going on the ground? The very fact that the New York Times is still playing the song and dance is insane, okay? It's not unexpected, to be fair. They have done so since the beginning.
Were killed by an airstrike outside of a hospital in Gaza City yesterday. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is talking about plans to take over Gaza. Deborah Petta is in East Jerusalem. Deborah, good morning.
A very good morning. Well, amid growing condemnation at home and abroad, Prime Minister Netanyahu has defended his new plan to expand the wall. The Israeli leader held a rare media conference with the foreign press over the weekend. Prime Minister Netanyahu lashed out at what he called a global campaign.
Dude, this shit is so crazy, too. Like, one of the most insane lines of argumentation from the Israeli state now is it's like almost childlike. I mean, this is disgusting, right? This is like blatant Nazi propaganda. It's Holocaust denial. And of course, Benjamin Netanyahu is doing it. That is expected. But one of the most insane things that he's now claiming, which we saw, which we saw throw out, like the Israeli state throw out in that Fox News, interview that he had, is that, oh, we're going to let journalists into the Strip, right? They're going to inevitably let journalists into the Strip. It's going to be favorable coverage, obviously. But even in the process, if they accidentally reveal that like the entirety of the Gaza Strip has been destroyed, what is Netanyahu's comments on that? Oh, Hamas booby-trapped it. That's what they're saying. Their argument for why the entire Gaza Strip has been flattened by multiple nuclear arms worth of munitions by the Israeli state is because Hamas booby-trapped every building. That is unironically what they're claiming. That's what they're saying. They're saying Hamas had 8 atomic bombs worth of explosive ordnance that they put into every single building, and they actually blew up the civilian buildings themselves. I'm sorry. If you believe that, you can't breathe without supervision. You know what I mean? You need like someone to consistently tell you to manually breathe. You have to be the dumbest person on the planet. And I don't think you're that dumb. I don't think any human being is that dumb. I think you just are looking for any reason to continue defending Israel's genocide because you like it, but at least you like read the room and you recognize that maybe people are not on board with it any longer. So you're just like actively trying to grab onto any defensible position in an otherwise completely indefensible sequence of horrifying war crimes and an ethnic cleansing campaign and a genocide, a live-streamed Holocaust.
Of lies.
And the international press has bought hook, line, and sinker Hamas statistics, Hamas claims, Hamas forgeries.
But Israel has refused foreign media entry into Gaza. We put this to him.
Firstly,
open your eyes to Hamas's lies.
Why is Israel not allowing foreign journalists into Gaza to report independently?
I've ordered, directed the military to bring in foreign journalists, more foreign journalists, a lot.
It is unclear if this...
You sure that is what booby trap means? Don't they mean that they had to destroy the building so their soldiers wouldn't die in a trap? Yeah, no, that's what they're saying. They're saying Hamas booby trapped every building. That's why they had to level every building so that they could blow up the booby traps. That's what they're saying. Or at least like the booby traps themselves actually exploded the buildings. It doesn't matter. It is just a lie. He has said both. Both are insane. What are you talking about? Do you think this is a consequence of booby trapping? Are you nuts?
Means the media will still only be allowed in under Israeli military control. For 22 months, the burden of documenting the war has fallen on Palestinian journalists inside Gaza. Over 200 have been killed. Just hours after the media briefing, an Al Jazeera crew, including correspondent Anas al-Sharif, was targeted in an Israeli strike in Gaza City. The IDF claims Sharif was the head of a Hamas cell, but just over 2 weeks ago, the New York-based Committee to Protect Journalists said it was gravely worried for his safety.
Who cares what Israel says, man? Just say that they lie all the time. You have to explain that they're lying. What do you mean? This is not journalism. Israel said he was a leader of the Hamas military wing or whatever. Oh, okay. if Israel said so. It's nuts that we still have to play this song and dance. It's been 22 months. They are very open about their genocidal ambition. What is going on? Everyone can see it. It is now officially, I mean, it's been this way for a while, but it's certainly like in broad daylight. It is now more problematic to consistently defend Israel in the eyes of the broader public than it is to run cover for it. Okay? That's it. You are destroying what remains of the limited credibility that you had. You've already actively eroded that confidence that people had in mainstream publications by doing this over and over again. But now you're going to lose the remaining boomers. Okay? You're at that stage where like the 75-year-olds are going to look at this and be like, what the f do you mean?
They believed Sharif was the target of an Israeli military smear campaign based on unsubstantiated allegations. Well, Sharif had told the CPJ he feared he was being set up for assassination. He left a will in which his final words are, "Do not forget Gaza and do not forget me in your prayers." Nate?
Deborah, thank you.
في كل ليلة الاحتلال الإسرائيلي يرتكب مجازر من المواطنين
Before he was assassinated by Israeli forces along with 4 Al Jazeera colleagues, one of the victims is still clinging on to life, and the rescue teams are trying with the most basic tools to get him out.
حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل.
A Palestinian man urged him to continue when he broke down in tears during his coverage.
سحب الجثامين من داخل هذه المدرسة.
الآن حزام ناري واستهداف عدد من المدارس
مدرسة حمامة بحي الشيخ رضوان.
غارة إسرائيلية تستهدف أحد المركبات هنا أمام مجمع الشفاء الطبي. الآن نتقدم إلى هذه المدرسة التي تم فيها المجزرة.
الطواقم الطبية الصباح الوصول إلى المكان جثامين أشلاء. الهدف عن مجزرة كبيرة، عشرات من الشهداء هنا في داخل هذه المدرسة.
His own immediate family members were murdered in the process. He hadn't seen his father in 60 days when he was killed in an airstrike.
لم أتمكن من الوصول إلى المنزل نتيجة هذا القصف المتواصل، وتم دفنه داخل مراكز اللواء.
صباح الخير. صباح الخير. صباح النور يا روحي. طبعا اليوم الصباح مختلف شام.
يلا باي يا بابا. أن نخلع هذه الخوذة ميادة التي أرهقتني طوال هذه الخطوة. كان على مدار الوقت يرافقني، والآن نعلن هنا من داخل قطاع غزة ومن داخل مدينة غزة هذا الإعلان ووقت إطلاق النار.
100 طفل كانوا يحفظون القرآن بين أروقة.
Yeah, that's him. As a child, Al-Sharif appeared on the Al Jazeera during the 2008 Gaza war.
المسجد المستهدف.
تطورات أن وزارة الصحة الفلسطينية سيما في صفوف الأطفال، ونحن طبعا هذا المشهد هو جزء من المعاناة، جزء من المجاعة التي ما زالت متواصلة ومستمرة في داخل القطاع. نتحدث عن نقص جميع المواد الغذائية في داخل الأطفال، أدنى المقومات الصحية.
في هذا القط مجزرة بعد استهداف.
I believe he was 28 years old. The Israeli military just killed him. Look at the photo caption. This is the Committee to Protect Journalists. CPJ calls for Anas al-Sharif's protection in face of Israeli smears. Al Jazeera Arabic's Gaza correspondent Anas al-Sharif has been called a terrorist multiple times by an Israeli army spokesperson after the journalist cried, reporting on starvation in Gaza. Anas al-Sharif was born in 1996. He was 4 when the Second Intifada began in 2000. He was 11 when Israel imposed a blockade in Gaza in 2007. He was 12 during Cast-led in 2008 to 2009. He was 18 during the 2014 assault on Gaza. He was 29 when Israel assassinated him in 2025. Was he targeted? Yes. He was deliberately targeted in a tent with other Al Jazeera journalists and assassinated by the Israeli state. And Israel has openly stated that they
need to keep in mind
they are killing journalists specifically for covering Israel's war crimes. Do you understand? Stoker has a breakdown on why they did this.
Many of you know
Israel assassinated Anas al-Sharif before the invasion of Gaza City so that it will happen in darkness. Here are some brief notes on Israeli targeting and decision making.
That a group of journalists was just intentionally targeted with a kinetic strike by the Israeli military in the Al Jazeera journalist tent in Gaza City, because they do their targeting operations based off cell phone signals. So somewhere, someone in the targeting cell was like, all these journalists are here, drop it. And it's hard to do a battle damage assessment based off of this video, but it's clearly, there's no crater. It was not a bomb. It was most likely a precision munition like a Hellfire missile shot from a Q-9 Reaper drone. As you can see, there's no blasted terrain. Okay, so basically, I've been tracking this for a long time. When they go to kill journalists or aid workers, they use precision munitions like this because they want to be able to see the bodies, see on thermal imaging the heat go away out of the bodies so they can confirm that they're dead. You can't do that if you're trying to kill a high-value target with a bomb because it just destroys everything. There's a drone somewhere circling above, making sure all of these guys are dead. This strike was not about leveling Gaza. This one was to kill the prominent journalists reporting the genocide. So, rest in power, y'all. And are there any quote-unquote Western journalists that would like to say anything?
Yeah. Here's the Israeli occupation forces bragging about this assassination. Struck Hamas terrorist Anas al-Sharif, who posed as an Al Jazeera journalist. Al-Sharif was the head of a Hamas terrorist cell and advanced rocket attacks on Israeli civilians and IDF troops. Intelligence and documents from Gaza, including rosters, terrorist training lists, and salary records, prove he was a Hamas operative integrated into Al Jazeera. A press badge isn't a shield for terrorism. Even your own fabricated document about Anas incriminates you 100%. It claims he was wounded in a training explosion in early 2023 and was left incapacitated and unfit for military service with extremely weak hearing in the left ear, weak eyesight, constant migraines, and headaches. In other words, Anas, per your own document, has zero military role during the entire period of the genocide, yet he was murdered so openly for the crime of being a journalist. As you guys know, this isn't the first journalist that Israel has assassinated. Hossam Shabat comes to mind, someone who I spoke with frequently in North Gaza, who chose to remain in North Gaza and cover the atrocities that were unfolding when Israel was trying to implement a blackout in North Gaza in some of the worst periods of the ethnic cleansing campaign. And Israel claimed that he was a Palestinian Islamic Jihad sniper, and then they assassinated him. When they did so, a couple weeks prior to his assassination, we knew that he was under the crosshairs. Yeah. Of course, Ahmed Fouad al-Khatib, Ethan Klein's favorite Palestinian collaborator with the Israeli state and the American government, had actively put a target on the backs of numerous journalists, including Anas al-Sharif. It's not, drama adjacent. This is just something that other Palestinian contributors are talking about as well. This is terrible news. Israel pulled the trigger, but I squarely blame Ahmed Fouad al-Khatib for their deaths. He planted false stories about Anas and is directly responsible for his murder. I also blame the Atlantic and Atlantic Council for giving this rat a platform for his lethal smears. Here's what he said on February 10th. Al Jazeera journalist Anas al-Sharif and cameraman attempted to provoke a security incident at the Netzarim corridor at the behest of Hamas. They tried to put up a drone above the Egyptian and American forces after the withdrawal of Israeli troops to capture footage, but were likely gathering intel and scouting the area for Hamas. He recognized journalists and they're covering the Netzarim corridor, but then says it's for Hamas purpose, which was rumored to want to use the Netzarim corridor as a site for future hostage release to prove it is in full control of Gaza. The American PMCs worked with the Egyptian security personnel to get the drone operator not to fly it overhead, with tensions escalating. The Al Jazeera journalist team sent it up anyway, and the video of the incident has been distributed on social media with laughter, commentary to boast about defying U.S. security contractors and proving that the Netzarim, like most of Gaza, is back under the full control of the resistance. Extremely reckless behavior that's going to endanger the ceasefire and create unnecessary risk for the civilians and the fragile calm that is desperately needed. Once again, Israel had never actually wanted to have fragile calm in that area and no area in Gaza. Israel violated that ceasefire openly. Chad Hasan, did Hasan cover the National Guard being deployed in DC already? Yes, for the first 2.5 hours of this broadcast. As a matter of fact, I just only switched to Israel news like in the last 40 minutes. Wait, you knew a journalist who was assassinated? Yes. Months ago. Almost half a year ago at this point. Hossam Shabat. Reminder that this is what he posted when Israel murdered beloved journalist Hossam Shabbat. Al Jazeera's fake journalists and mercenaries are working overtime trying to serve their Islamist overlords and save Hamas from collapse. Never forget that Al Jazeera is the media arm of Hamas. Al Jazeera equals Hamas, but the people of Gaza finally see through both. There's no going back. This is what Ahmed Fuad al-Khatib said when Israel assassinated Hossam Shabbat. 21 years old, by the way. That's who this demon is. Nazi collaborator, piece of shit. Anyway, here is Mohammed Shahada talking to Al Jazeera about all of the lies that Israel has been engaging in.
One thing that you need to keep in mind is Israel has been lying incessantly since the beginning of the genocide. It's been the cornerstone of Israel's genocidal campaign to lie every single day about everything possible and to come up with the most lunatic lies imaginable. Israel lied about massacring the ambulance workers in Rafah. They lied about the GHF massacres. They lied about the Shifa Hospital, the Flower Massacre, the beheaded babies, Hamad Hospital, Hind Rajab, the terror list at the Rantisi Hospital that turned out to be a calendar, the World Central Kitchen workers, babies in ovens, white phosphorus, deliberately starving Gazans, Sinwar surrounding himself with 20 hostages in a tunnel, gassing hostages, the Ahli Hospital, killing women and children with white flags, mass raping Palestinians, non-existent tunnels under graveyards, Nasser Hospital, Hussam Abu Safiya, mass graves, snipers targeting kids in the heads, providing protection to criminal gangs that are looting aid systematically. Israel also lied about wiping out Gaza. They lied about refusing and collapsing the ceasefire, blowing up Gazans fleeing the south, blowing up and destroying Kamal Udwan Hospital, claiming that dead Gazan children are fake plastic dolls, creating alleged safe zones that they push the people into and they bomb them once they get there. They lied about the general's plan. They lied about how many Hamas militants they killed, about the Red Crescent taking part in October 7th. That was another lie. They lied about how many journalists they've killed, and they lied about designating journalists as Hamas militants. They lied about Muhammad Abu Silmiya, the head of the Shifa Hospital. They lied about the Indonesian hospital, about UNRWA, Al-Auda Hospital, killing women sheltering at a church, bombing the church again, bombing another church, destroying every single university in Gaza, destroying the overwhelming majority of schools in Gaza, blowing up Gaza's Turkish cancer hospital, the sole cancer hospital in Gaza.
After using it as a military base, the Israeli government was the one who used it. It emptied it out and then used it as a military base to launch operations out of. And then after they pulled out, they blew it up.
They lied about Hamas hiding giant stockpiles of fuel in Rafah and Hamas looted, finding active smuggling tunnels in Rafah. They lied about hostages that would return pregnant. And they lied about who killed Yussi Sharabi, Itai Sivrisky, and other hostages as well that the IDF themselves killed. And after all these lies, Israel comes up and says, but trust us, our next lie will be 100% true. Trust us. You should attach as much value to Israel's allegations about Anas al-Sharif as you attach to the dust on the floor. Because without lies at this stage, without lies, Israel's narrative dies completely. It's the only way they can sustain the genocide.
This time is true. Believe me. Here's the press club in D.C., the National Press Club in D.C., and their ridiculous statement on this. Throughout this entire statement, you would never know that Israel killed Anas al-Sharif, and the IDF took credit for the assassination immediately. The National Press Club is saddened and troubled by reports of Al Jazeera that his correspondent Anas al-Sharif was killed today in Gaza. The network says al-Sharif, 28, died in a tent for journalists outside the main gate of the Al-Shifa hospital. Al-Sharif, a respected Arabic language correspondent, have reported extensively from northern Gaza throughout the current conflict. His death is among more than 200 journalists reported killed since the war began. The killing of a journalist while working to inform the public is a loss felt far beyond one newsroom, said National Press Club President Mike Balsamo. Journalists must be able to work without being targeted or killed. All parties in conflict zones must honor their obligations. The National Press Club calls for a thorough and transparent examination of the circumstances surrounding al-Sharif's death and reaffirms its commitment to defending the safety and independence of journalists worldwide. Bullshit. Dropsite Middle East editor Sharif Abdul Quddus reflected on Western media's response to Israel's killing of Anas al-Sharif and 5 other journalists. He told Breaking Points there's been a progression of brazenness in how Israel kills journalists in Palestine as Western media continues to enable Israel.
To Anas's killing, I'm still somehow shocked by it, even though I shouldn't be after so long, by Western media institutions. The National Press Club called for a thorough and transparent examination of the circumstances surrounding Anas's death. What on earth does that mean? They're putting out a boilerplate statement calling for an investigation. Israel openly, publicly...
Yeah, what investigation? Israel said they killed him and said he was Hamas. Unless you're saying that, unless you want to lend credence to the Israeli narratives, after 22 months of lies, What do you mean? We have to do a thorough and an independent investigation. Israel already admitted that.
Threatened him for months. They bombed the tent he was in, and then they took credit for it and bragged about it.
Yeah.
What investigation are you talking about?
That's exactly.
Reuters, the headline of Reuters is Israel kills Al Jazeera journalist it says was Hamas leader. And then it goes on to quote the Israeli military saying, you know, he was responsible for advancing rocket attacks or some of this, you know, preposterous claims. This is making this it's enabling Israel to do this.
That's right.
And if we look, there's been a progression of brazenness of how Israel kills journalists in Palestine. In the beginning, they would deny that they killed them, or they would say it's collateral damage, or that it was some mistake. Then they started claiming that the journalists were in fact militants after they killed them. They did this with Hamza Dahdouh in January 2024. They produced some ridiculous documents claiming he's a Hamas militant or Islamic Jihad, I don't remember. Then they continued to step it up. They created this hit list in October. And they put 6 Al Jazeera journalists and basically saying openly, we're going to kill them. And now they've killed 2 of them. You know, they went even further in April. They targeted one of the most prominent journalists in Gaza. His name was Hasan. They bombed him in a very similar way to the bombing they did yesterday. They bombed a media tent, but this one outside of Nasser Hospital. They killed 2 journalists. One was burned alive and the other died. But the journalist they were trying to kill, Hasan, he was wounded. Very bad.
Yeah. And then they killed him in the hospital.
Badly, he was burned. He lost 2 of his fingers. He was recovering inside the hospital. They bombed the hospital and killed him. They bombed an injured journalist a month later, barely a month later, and killed him. And then openly admitted to it. So they're becoming more brazen about it, openly admitting to it, because they know there will be 0 consequences.
Yeah. No, that's what they do. They push the limit.
They might get some words of condemnation.
Like saying this post-October 7, in the immediate aftermath of October 7, would cause even the uninitiated who are Israel's behavior to look at you like you're some anti-Semitic psychopath, right? What do you mean they? Oh, are you talking about Jews? Oh, you just are saying that about the Jewish state. Now think about the environment when you actively report on the truth about the ways in which Israel conducts itself. And think about how many cries of anti-Semitism actually stick at this stage. Okay? For the past 12 years of my professional broadcasting career, I saw a very different attitude from the Western public when I tried to cover this shit truthfully. It's done. It's done. So now what remains is the media, Western outlets that are actively trying to defend Israel with increasingly ridiculous lies. It's over. It's done. But our work is not done because change has not come yet. So you have to keep pushing. You have to keep protesting. You have to increase the stress. You have to increase the pressure. You have to make it so that you are an undeniable force. You have to make it so that this comes with consequences. The unlimited support for Israel has to come with consequences. That's it. It's obvious that the Democrats are not going to do so. It's clear. And when you say it's already gone too far, man, I know. I understand that. But you're not doing this specifically for, you're not doing this for your own feelings. You're doing this for the people that haven't been murdered yet. You're doing this for those who have been murdered, whose deaths are not in vain. Okay? Palestinians do not have the opportunity to just, take a breather, to step away from this. This is their entire existence. Okay?
Outraged by the targeted killings of journalists in Gaza. Salah Nigam joins me now. He is the director of news for Al Jazeera English. And Salah, can I just begin by saying first that I am very sorry for your loss and that we here at CNN really do stand in solidarity with you and your journalists at this time. This was the targeted killing of, I believe, 5 of your staff, including one of the most prominent journalists and voices during the duration of this war, Al Sharif. Can I begin by just asking you for your reaction to what has happened?
First, thank you very much. And I think this is time that journalists everywhere in the world stand beside each other to defend collecting the truth from the field and protecting themselves against the tyranny and crimes that's committed against them. The reaction is journalists in Gaza are journalists. They have been working for 2 years under very difficult circumstances, risking their lives in order for one thing to happen, is to bring the truth about what's happening in Gaza to the outside world. And our correspondent died doing this after a threat from the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday in the evening, few hours before they were killed. A threat, and at the same time when he was asked why don't you let international journalists to go into Gaza, he promised to secure them. And this is how he secured journalists, killing 5 of them.
And the IDF have come out with this claim that Anas served as the head of a terrorist cell in Hamas. I mean, it's an accusation of Hamas membership that you have heard throughout the duration of the war. What is your response to that?
It's not we only have heard that accusation. Anything for this Israeli government, which doesn't go along with its desires and narratives and what it plans to Gaza or other places, is Hamas member. This is the easiest accusation that happens. This is a government that is lying and lying and lying, and its lies are proved by so many organizations, eyewitnesses, countries, throughout this war.
Anas and your other Al Jazeera journalists had moved, we know, to write their own obituaries before they were killed, which suggests they knew what was coming. Can you tell us what you know of the events of the past week and where the crew were at the time of the strike?
The crew was in the vicinity of Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza. This is a location that a lot of journalists go and start giving live interviews with their channels or collect information from. It's very well known, and they were not hiding. They're known to be there. Yes, every journalist in Gaza is writing his own obituary, because if you are in Gaza, you are not safe anywhere, whether you are a journalist or a normal citizen. 60,000 people died. Every morning you have something like between 50 and 100 people killed by Israel bullets or drones or whatever. So yes, they live in danger all the time.
Yeah. Salah, Israel have known where your journalists have been for the past 2 years. Can you speak to us about the timing of this and why you think this happened now?
The timing of this attack was clear from the Israeli Prime Minister press conferences yesterday. He announced his plans for Gaza. He wants to go and level the city and transfer something like 1 million of its inhabitants to concentration camp in the south, and maybe will accept voluntarily what he calls volunteer evacuation, and in fact it's expelling all of them. That is the plan for Gaza. Now, do they need eyewitnesses? Do they need cameras to monitor that and give the world? In the same press conference yesterday, he denied that there was hunger, shortage of food, but not starvation, which is a lie, as we all know. They suspect the numbers of 60,000 people dead, although it's verified by everyone. So it's killing the messenger and trying to eliminate any eyewitness to atrocities.
Yes, and we know what a lot of your journalists have been doing, and us in particular, is bearing witness to the starvation that has been happening in the enclave. The Committee to Protect Journalists last month said it was gravely worried for Al-Sharif's safety. How concerned are you for your remaining staff there now? And are you taking any precautions? Is it even possible?
There are protocols to secure journalists internationally, like protective gears, trackers, knowing their whereabouts, the way they use the communications and all of that. But at the same time, if they are reporting from a besieged place with very little movement they can do, and they are confronted by a complete modern army that's bombing that place every day, there is no place safe. So we pray for God every day for their safety, as well as other people in Gaza, children, women, and men who are under fire for 2 years now.
Yeah, and as I said at the top, we stand in solidarity with our eyes and ears on the ground there in Gaza. Salah Negum, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much.
The Foreign Press Association says it's outraged journalists in Gaza. Let's bring in Ian Williams, the president of the association. Ian, welcome to the program. As we've noted, we've seen repeated calls for Western journalists to be allowed into Gaza as the war approaches its 2-year mark. Just talk about, tell our viewers why that is so important to have Western journalists there to observe what is going on the ground throughout the war, and what the reaction has been and the justification when you reach out to the Israeli government demanding as much.
Well, one of the points is we should trust Palestinian journalists as well, but there's, profound sort of racism, and the Israeli government has basically said if you're Palestinian, you're not to be trusted. Whereas I think the foreign press, the press in general, are now beginning to learn that whatever the Israeli government says has to be taken with a hundredweight of salt.
22 months. I'm sorry. After like the 5th month, you were just, if you still did not actually take what Israel was saying with a grain of salt, like, you were just entertaining it on purpose. And I think that is the case. I think that the media is complicit in this, for the record. Instead of scrutinizing those in power making accusations, the BBC sows doubt about the innocence of those accused who can't defend themselves because they have been assassinated. This is how passive consent for genocide is manufactured. BBC presenter, in terms of how journalists are operating the Gaza Strip, obviously international organizations like the BBC cannot go in. So Al Jazeera is using local people there. Are they able to operate truly independently? An absolutely disgraceful question. Like, they're saying, are they able to operate independently outside of like Hamas control? Maybe what Israel is saying is truthful. Maybe he is actually a part of Hamas. Maybe he's an armed militant, an armed combatant. Look, he's taking photos with members of Hamas and the Politburo and even Yahya Sinwar. It's like they did this with Hasan as well. Oh, he took photos. He took photos of the Hamas members. It's like, yeah, dude. They are literally the people who are responsible for governing the Gaza Strip. What do you mean? What kind of idiotic assessment is this? You can't just kill someone because they've taken a photo with a person, okay? You can't, that's insane. That's an insane standard. If that standard was evenly applied to Israel, once again, I'm going to repeat this. If Israel's standards for what constitutes a valid military target was applied, then you can't say anything that happened on October 7th is a war crime. Like, literally, what do you mean? You could literally justify nuking Tel Aviv by that same standard, and it would be a perfectly legal act of military intervention because there's mandatory conscription in Israel. And on top of that, you have a bunch of politicians and members of the government that are tasked with civil governance, civil affairs inside of Israel. They live with their families. Israel has assassinated, the head of sanitation, who was a part of Hamas's Politburo, who was a part of the civil governance division there. Israel has assassinated that person and their families and openly said that they're doing this because they are a part of sanitation. They're a part of like the ministry of governance, the internal affairs. It's ridiculous. It is a ridiculous standard. Here, I'll give you one step further. It's like saying you can just nuke every part of America, okay? You can just like literally send America nukes. Just destroy the United States of America in its entirety, leave it as a crater in the dustbin of history because there are a fuck ton of veterans that live all around the country. There are a fuck ton of people who are former politicians, current politicians. That standard does not work. There's a reason. That's crazy. Everyone that has ever taken a photo with Donald Trump is now what? A legal, valid military target, or anyone that's ever taken a photo with like a Republican or a member of the Republican Party, a member of the Democratic Party, a member of any American party, anyone who has ever been responsible for like public sanitation, anyone who's a former or current police officer, anyone who's done anything, like the head of the local library. Everyone is now a perfectly valid military target in that regard. It's ridiculous. The only reason why you don't consider that as a real threat is because no one is capable of doing so. Okay? No one is obviously capable of doing to Israel or America what Israel and America have done to Palestine. And that's the reason why people can entertain these ridiculous assessments of whether someone is a valid military target or not. It's bullshit. More journalists have been killed by Israel since October 2023 than the number of journalists killed in both World War I and World War II combined. The Israeli military has even publicly confirmed by its spokeswoman that they do not differentiate between civilian employees of Hamas and Hamas militants. Even more bluntly, according to the Cost of War Project, the Gaza genocide is the most deadly war for journalists in recorded history, full stop. Israel is also, I'll take it one step further, actively said that journalists who are accurately covering what Israel is doing in the Gaza Strip are actually working at the behest of Hamas. They've literally killed journalists and said the reason why we killed this journalist is because he's doing journalism and therefore benefiting Hamas. It's not like they're hiding it. They're openly saying why they're doing these violent things. So the very fact that there are still people trying to entertain this idiotic notion, especially in Western press, is so morally bankrupt.
Because there's, what they say bears no relation to reality. And they use keywords like, the Hamas Ministry of Defense. Hamas controls the place. And I mean, the Ministry of Health. Hamas controls the place. Journalists there, frankly, I don't care whether Asharif was in Hamas or not. We don't kill journalists for being Republicans or Democrats or in Britain, Labour Party.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh my God. Finally, I can't believe I'm hearing this on CNN. Holy, thank you. He's not, but even if he was, it doesn't matter. Like, that's crazy. Your political affiliations mean that you can be assassinated is crazy. That's not how this works. It took 22 months for CNN, and this is the international part of CNN, to finally say the truth. Oh my God.
Hamas is a political organization as well as a terrorist organization, perhaps, but it's not permissible to go killing people. And this was the distinct change now, is the IDF actually boasted that this was a targeted killing. And the reason they're doing that is they're not letting foreign journalists in. So Palestinian journalists are the only ones who are there, the only ones who can tell what's happening there. And what they're saying completely contradicts what's coming from Israeli spokesmen in Israel and across the world. It's quite clear they've documented the ongoing massacres, and the Israelis don't like it.
What do you mean by not caring whether Anas al-Sharif was part of Hamas? Because the Israelis have produced what they say is evidence and have longstanding statements where they say he was not only part of Hamas, but he was leading a Hamas cell. In your view, that doesn't make him fair game.
Is the lady deaf? Yes. That's why she's there. Okay? Her job is to literally just turn around and be like, hey, I know you just described exactly why this is a completely unacceptable war crime that Israel has done 200 times over, okay? More than 200 times. But also, Israel, the party that is committing a genocide by the admission of virtually everyone on the planet with the exception of people who are paid to avoid that reality, those at CNN, have claimed that this person was a Hamas brigade commander with legal kills, actually, with so many kills. He was scalping people. What do you have to say to Israel's fantasies?
For Israeli targets?
Well, first of all, I don't believe in working 24 hours on journalism. He doesn't have time to work in a cell on the side. The second point is I basically don't believe anything the Israeli government says about this. They've lied and lied and lied. They buried a whole medical team after denying it. They went and destroyed the evidence. They bombed hospitals, claiming there were Hamas facilities underneath, which weren't there. And the only way to conclusively disprove them was to let foreign journalists in. And they won't do that. So now they're basically saying, if foreign journalists are allowed in now, I would make sure they compose their wills before they go.
These are two separate.
The IDF has no compunction.
These are two separate what? No, it's not. It's not a two separate statement. It is directly. It is the same. It is the same government. It's the same government that is doing a genocide, that has consistently lied every single time it's taken a breath to say anything. Why the would you ever believe a single word coming out of Israel? unless you are paid to believe the words coming out of Israel, even if you don't personally believe the words coming out of Israel.
These are two separate issues you raise. I think the majority of journalists around the world, and I would imagine a lot of our viewers.
It's not a separate issue at all. The reason why Israel does not want Western journalists to enter the Gaza Strip is because when they kill the only journalists that are in the Gaza Strip, who are brown Palestinians, you can turn around and say, well, maybe he was Hamas. That's the only reason. Do you not understand? Because of racism, because of your racism, because of white supremacist attitudes, the notion that Palestinians are not human beings is so easily trafficked through Western media. That is precisely the reason why they can't have white journalists in the Strip. Because if they kill white journalists, which I assume Israel would probably still get away with, mind you, okay? Because these guys are such rapacious dick riders of the genocidal apartheid state that they would probably be like, well, did Clarissa Ward deserve it? I don't know. Maybe Clarissa Ward was Hamas. They could literally kill their own white colleagues, and they would still turn around and be like, well, maybe this was Hamas. We should do an investigation.
Would support allowing Western journalists into Gaza to see for themselves and report for themselves what is happening in this war. But when you say you don't believe a word Israel is saying, you know, there's been a lot of accusation thrown at Israel for not producing evidence to confirm some of the claims they've made. If they then produce evidence and you say, I don't believe it, where does that leave things?
What do you mean? They've never produced evidence. They've never. The evidence that they produce is not real evidence. You are supposed to be an outlet that does journalism. When a state that is conducting a genocide routinely lies about its targets, routinely lies about who they're killing by presenting immediately dismissible falsehoods, okay? You're not supposed to take what they're saying at face value after the 754th time that they're done so over the course of 22 months.
Well, it leaves things. We work on the balance of proof. Our job is to challenge authority. The authority here is denying access to independent witnesses. Nobody else is allowed. International organizations aren't allowed into Gaza. Journalists aren't allowed into Gaza. Reuters, AP, CNN, BBC are not allowed into Gaza. Now, what does that give us? Sort of more than a little hint that things are going on there that the Israeli government doesn't want you to know about or doesn't want you to witness. What other conclusion are you going to give? Now, there's a presumption in favor of Israel in a lot of this, which is totally unjustified after recent experience. I think, and they've targeted journalists before in the West Bank as well, by the way. We're looking at Gaza, but journalists have been assaulted and killed in the West Bank as well for witnessing what the settlers are doing, let alone what the IDF is doing. So I think we're really, you know, it doesn't do Israel any great favors for basically making everything they say totally questionable.
All right, Ian Williams, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for the time, President of the Foreign.
Yeah, this is the president of the Foreign Press Association that she's having on, by the way. Of course he's going to have this attitude because it's undeniable. It's unconscionable. Israel is doing a mass slaughter of all journalists. This anchor, suck my dick. Anyway, Ryan Grimm says, here's the challenge. Name one other country or organization on the planet that is not a designated terrorist organization that would strike a tent full of journalists outside a hospital, celebrate it, and announce it was justified, using obviously contradictory documents, claiming that just one of the journalists had previously served in the military. Name one single other country that you could even imagine doing that. Okay? Even America doesn't get to do that. It's crazy how much Israel gets to do. It is unimaginable. Okay? At least America tries to hide when they assassinate journalists, you know what I mean? Which is, of course, still unjustifiable. But even Barack Obama had to apologize for striking the Kunduz hospital and killing Doctors Without Borders medical personnel. Israel just goes, nah, they're Hamas, and move on. That's it. And we have to sit there and be like, I guess they said so. It's crazy. The idea that someone would pose as a journalist by doing live reporting all day, every day for 2 straight years, but is actually secretly a terrorist is so stupid. It demonstrates how much power Israel believes it has. Their excuse for assassinating a world-renowned journalist and his entire crew doesn't even have to make any sense for them to put it forward. It doesn't matter what they say. They can kill without impunity, and they know it. This is precisely what it is. The very fact that they are not even trying to present like reasonable evidence for this, which, you know, we're not giving Israel tactics here, but like the very fact that they don't even choose to present reasonable evidence here in the unjustifiable assassination of yet another journalist, a very famous one specifically, is an implication that they understand they can do this with impunity. It does not matter. No one will call into question anything that they are doing. No one will put a stop to it. It doesn't matter what Israel says. Sometimes they fabricate evidence to smear those they've killed. Sometimes they won't bother. Either way, they know they'll get away with it. No one will stop them. It's become less about convincing the world and more about convincing themselves. Here is Clarissa Ward on the assassination of Anas al-Sharif. Even she had some choice words here, and she is the main foreign correspondent. Clarissa Ward, remember, does some shit every now and then like she did in Syria, but she also to this day is one of the only Western reporters that have been able to actually sneak into the Gaza Strip to get coverage early on of all of the atrocities that were unfolding in Gaza. I've said this to you before, okay?
I woke up this morning to the horrific news that Anas al-Sharif, the Al Jazeera journalist, and 3 of his colleagues were killed in a targeted Israeli strike inside Gaza. This brings the total number of journalists killed in Gaza since October 7th to 176, which is, frankly, a mind-boggling statistic. And I just wanted to say, and I realize that it helps nobody, but I think I speak for a lot of Western journalists when I say that so many of us feel angry and outraged and powerless and ashamed. We are confronted with a stream of accusations from the IDF that seek to dehumanize our Palestinian colleagues, that seek to justify their killings, and the nature of the carefully calibrated language that we are using in our stories feels so detached and so not proportional to the agony and outrage of the moment. And behind the scenes, many of us continue to push and press and sign letters and write petitions and do meetings, and none of it seems to make a damn bit of difference. So just a reminder that journalism is not a crime, and that the targeting of journalists is a war crime.
The previous anchor reposted on Twitter, she's 100% bought by Israel. Wait, that's the previous... No. What? Gal Gadot has always stood for clarity and reason when read story, which makes us grateful and honor she backed the Don't Feed the Lion from the start. Brianna. Oh, that's the... Oh! That's the lady. Oh, she reposted this. She's in it. She's tagged in it. CNN anchor. A brave and beautiful story that helps kids understand anti-Semitism and stand up to it with strength, pride, and compassion. This book is so needed right now. Gal Gadot, actress and anti-Semitism advocate. August 8th, 2025. Hashtag Don't Feed the Lion. Well, now we know why she was pushing back on the Foreign Press Association president, saying Israel is lying with every breath it takes. What is this? Hasan the Hun vindicated again, I see. Also proof, since apparently a lot of people need it, at this all could indeed end and could have ended any moment with one phone call from the POTUS. Netanyahu said, you are misleading the public that we can stop fighting and then return to it because Trump will let us. Yeah. You didn't even make the nominations, little bro? Oh, damn. I'm not even at the top of the bracket this time. 2025 Anti-Semite of the Year Award. It's a close one this year. I guess good. Piers Morgan being on there is so funny. I think they just gave up on trying to deplatform me, which is good. Yeah. They disrespect my work. I know. It's really up. I'm always telling them, like, if you think you hate Israel enough, let me tell you, okay? You don't. You do not. Yeah. Also, UN has condemned Israel's targeted attack, killing 6 Gaza journalists.
Chronicle of a death foretold. Anas al-Sharif and his 5 colleagues knew that Israel was likely to kill them. The press flak jacket couldn't save them. It's an emblem of the extraordinary danger of reporting in Gaza. For their colleagues, grief mingles with fear, because any of them could be next. Al-Sharif wrote a final message back in April. I have tasted suffering and loss. I never once hesitated to convey the truth. They carried their bodies through the ruined streets of Gaza City, past what were once homes and offices. The collective grief of a community and the individual grief of those who knew the men best.
أنا عاجز عن التعبير لأنه ما في كلمات بتوصف حق أنس وتضحية أنس والمعاناة اللي عاشها واللي عشناها كصحفيين.
The Al Jazeera team was targeted by a drone in the tent where they slept and worked in the grounds of the Al-Shifa hospital. The Israelis had already destroyed all their offices in Gaza City. The journalists thought a hospital might provide some protection.
The occupation says that by killing the journalists, the truth will be stopped and that its crimes will not be exposed. But I tell the occupation that your bombardment on us increases our determination and resolve in conveying the voice of the suffering of our people in Gaza.
Yeah, they bombed tents.
Israel has not only admitted the strike, but trumpeted it. Anas al-Sharif was a Hamas cell leader, they say, responsible for orchestrating rocket attacks. But to millions of viewers across the Arab world, he was the face of Gaza, reporting the endless airstrikes that have killed tens of thousands of people.
After this segment is over, I'm going to have Brace and Liz on to talk about Epstein. And we'll also talk a little bit about Israel as well. Hold on one second. Yeah. We have Truanon in the building. Hold on. Yes, Brace and Liz both. Full stack. Full team.
Tim cast off his flak jacket when a temporary ceasefire was declared and everyone celebrated. And break down while reporting on a woman who was starving. Crocodile tears, said the Israeli Defense Force Arabic spokesman. Part of a false Hamas campaign on starvation. The IDF put out several videos saying he was a member of Hamas, which he and his employers denied on numerous occasions.
He continued his coverage despite all of allegations and accusations and all of difficulties, and even targeting his house and targeting his family, and managed to stay in Gaza, and he refused to leave Gaza.
Reporter Mohammed Kreke, cameraman Ibrahim Zahir, Mohammed Nufal and Muammer Aliwa, and freelancer Mohammed Al-Khaldi were also killed. Anas al-Sharif, who was 28, had 2 children. In a final message he wrote to be read in the event of his death, he said that his daughter Sham was the light of his eyes.
Hold on one second.
I never got to watch.
What's up, guys? Brace and Liz are in the building. I have we're currently covering the Israel assassination. Before we move on to wait, hold on. Why did I lose? I think video? Liz.